Right, this is Jake Williams with my pitch presentation for my final major project. This is a follow-on from my initial concept presentation that I did previously. So, what is my final concept? My final concept will now revolve around the theme of horror and will focus mainly on the mechanics of puzzles, missions, sort of like escape rooms. The concept has now evolved from the initial concept, and I've decided to focus on a smaller map. This is due to the fact, sort of like time constraints. I felt that the open world didn't really fit with the theme. Focus more on the gameplay than a map. It's still open world, but will not feature any playable vehicles. Yet again, didn't really fit with the theme. This is because after research, I found that horror games in general do not focus on driving mechanics, such as Resident Evil. In addition, the smaller open world will allow me to use my time more effectively, allow me to focus on the complexity of puzzles, mazes and other escape rooms that I plan on adding to my game. So, my concept game is now called Streets of Shadows. It will now incorporate a city setting filled with decaying buildings, wrecked streets and environmental objects, so like rundown cars, broken telephone poles, street lights. The puzzles themselves will work in an escape room manner. The player will need to solve mazes, water puzzles, light puzzles, and object puzzles. So sort of like pick up sort of like key objects to open up doors, sort of move obstacles out of the way. These puzzles have all been changed and altered since my initial concept, and this is due to my extensive research that I carried out. I now have a better understanding of using lighting effects, water effects, and most importantly inventory systems, as these will enhance the puzzle experience and will ultimately make for a better concept than I originally planned for. Streets of Shadows will still use a pixel art style, and this is due to my primary research that I carried out. I found that pixel art style will work best with Construct 3 engine, that obviously I intend to use, and I researched into different methods of shading and blending to ensure that my art stands out against my previous work. So moving on, what am I planning on adding that makes this more than a pass? I plan on elevating and stretching my knowledge as best as possible, and so my concept will include an array of features, elements, and mechanics that I believe will push my outcome to more than a pass. For example, I now plan on using light and water effects in my puzzles to add more depth and complexity to them, so the player is not simply picking up a key object and finishing the puzzle. These water and lighting effects will work on adding a second dimension to the puzzles. So sort of what I mean by this, a key object or puzzle clue may not only be visible when the player lines the water reflections together to form an important clue. Also, the lighting effects that I researched into in my contextual research report will allow me to enhance the horror experience and will also allow for the difficulty of puzzles to increase. And also this will also stretch what I already have done before in my games, as I've never worked with sort of these effects before. To stretch my outcome, I will be reflecting greatly on my research to ensure that it is relevant and used in my concept, whilst also utilising newly learnt mechanics such as inventory systems. My research needs to be relevant to my outcome, otherwise it will not meet the criteria required, and thus I will only achieve a passing grade. I will use a newly learnt mechanic called inventory systems. This inventory system will significantly test my knowledge because it will require me to utilize new features such as JSON files that I have never used these in a game before. So I believe that this will ensure that I achieve a greater grade than a pass. My research and also experimentation will aid me when it comes to using this feature. It's also included in my research I have at the bottom here. So what do I think might not go to plan? How will I ensure that these problems do not arise? One main area is pixel art, shading and dithering. One area that I feel may not go to plan is my pixel art. I feel that my skills lack significantly in art design, so I may have trouble designing all of my assets. To ensure that this problem does not arise, I will utilize all my research sources from the contextual research report and carry out experimentation to test the methods of shading and dithering to ensure that I have a greater knowledge on creating high quality pixel art. So here is my um, primary research that I carried out, and gathered some great examples of experimentation that I can carry out from this. As mentioned before, I feel that lighting and water reflections will may not go to plan, but I have carried out extensive research and will carry out extensive experimentations these features to ensure it doesn't happen. Right. Going from the research, I feel that one area that may not go to plan is the execution of my lighting and water reflections and effects. By this I mean that I may have difficulty incorporating the mechanics into the playability of my puzzles. To ensure that a very low chance of this happening, I will carry extensive experimentation, testing and reflecting upon the sources I used in my contextual research report to ensure that I'm crystal clear on how to utilize these features. So, how did my research affect, change, and help my concept idea? As I've previously stated, my research has helped shape and change my concept idea in many ways. One way that my research has altered my concept is I have now decided to remove the idea of playable vehicles. I've decided to not carry this feature into my final concept because I found that most horror games do not focus on this mechanic, and my primary research and similar narratives playtests has aided this decision. Continuing, another way that my concept evolved from my research report is that I have decided to now include more horror conventions into my final concept, such as jump scares and sort of focusing on moods and emotions that are portrayed from that. After carrying out research into similar narratives and the conventions of horror, I found that jump scares play a major role in horror games, and these truly enhance the gameplay experience. So I've now decided to adopt a similar style and include jump scares and zombie inspired enemies in my puzzles. In addition to this, I carried out research into how moods and emotions can affect the psychological state of the player, and a university report I read said that my theory of horror relies on moods, which are mental states that differ from other emotional or affective states in certain important ways. I found that mental states can also play a role in the theme of horror, so I must find and experiment with this theory and incorporate this into my game to fully utilize and stretch the horror genre. This is something I had not considered in my initial concept, and now I will use this understanding to enhance my final concept. In addition, in my contextual research report, I researched into inventory systems and graphical user interfaces. This research helped me to alter my final concept idea because I now know how to include inventory systems, so I'll be able to create a wider range of puzzle rooms that require object pickups. This is something that I previously had little experience and knowledge of, so the research helped me to evolve my idea, and now my final concept will include inventory systems and management. I'll also carry out experimentation with this feature further to find a more useful sort of compare methods of how to implement this. And finally, my concept idea has evolved further thanks to my contextual research report. The most prominent areas that my concept evolved was lighting, shadows, and water reflections. These features I had not previously planned, but after researching into these, I found that these will add extra depth and life into my game, and I believe that with some experimentation, I'll be able to utilize these features to create interactive puzzles that require the use of shadows and lighting, similar to that of this game, Shadowmatic, which we can see below. And thank you for taking your time to listen to my pitch presentation